I can tell you probably the three main ways that people like to talk about hypnosis. The first way is people have a debate that's ongoing that we call the state versus non-state theorists, right? We have a group of people who say hypnosis is a distinct state of mental activity. And then we have people who say, no, it's not. And those folks who say it's not are arguing that your brain is fluctuating through lots of different brainwave cycles of activity throughout the day, and that several of those hypnotic activity could be classified in several of those. Sometimes you're in alpha waves and sometimes you're in theta waves. And even more lately, I've been reading about how sometimes when you're in gamma waves, you might even be doing some things that would be considered hypnotic. So those folks say you can't be spread all over the place and say you're in hypnosis if really your brain's clicking in lots of different ways all day. The state people say, look, here's how we are in our daily lives. When you go into hypnosis, clearly something's different. So there's a state. And just because we haven't done a good job of really pinning it down and defining it yet, there's still a state. I tend to fall with the state people, and I say hypnosis is a dissociative state. I like, my experiences favor that dissociation occurs on a spectrum from real light forms of dissociation like daydreaming to way on the other end, less healthy, more serious forms of dissociation like real breaks from reality, right? Where you're just full on, you're not in touch with reality anymore. And somewhere on that spectrum is hypnosis, where you can have hallucinations and sort of defy reality, or you can also get very, very focused, be more open to suggestion, be more receptive to suggestion, and really get some good things done for yourself. So I'm going to say today, for the purpose of this discussion, that hypnosis is a dissociative state in which people become more focused and more receptive to suggestion. How's that?
Now, I'm going in. Suggestion. I've heard that, well, I've experienced that different people are susceptible to suggestion at different levels. If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So you have to keep in mind that pretty much in all of these videos, almost everything we talk about, the very nature of how we live is we're always making meaning, right? And so your brain is running 24/7. Even when you're sleeping, your subconscious mind is processing ideas and having thoughts and emotional responses, and you're dreaming and stuff. So all the time, your brain is working to make meaning, and people do that in different ways. And so the very nature of always of being a living, breathing entity, which is always creating meaning, means that you're always taking in stimuli from the world around you and processing it in a way that may not be the way other people are processing it, right? That's the real complexity of it. And so suggestion is part of that process, that a suggestion can be as simple as a direct suggestion, an authoritative direct suggestion like, please pass me the salt, yeah, which most people would think of as a command, but I mean it's a communicated idea received and absorbed by the recipient, who then takes action on it, right? So you could have that, or it could be like really, really like, it could be a non-verbal facial expression, which when you start thinking about it, how many times have you just had a friend give you a look like they go, right? And like that means something.
I'm married. What's the question?
That communicates, you know? And so suggestions take on a vast array of forms and modalities, and they're happening all the time. And that's what's beautiful, is when you start to think about this stuff and you raise your awareness of it, you start to pick up on things and understand how this stuff is impacting your daily life without necessarily going to see a hypnotist, without going and getting formally hypnotized. It's all happening.
Awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, which comes back to what you and I talk with folks about all the time, right? Of mindfulness. Yep. Of learning to practice daily mindfulness and become more aware of what you feel and what you encounter and all of this stuff. This is why I'm so glad that we're working together on this stuff, because it's all the time, every day. It is literally the fabric of living.
Yep. Now, one thing that I've heard comes into play, and sometimes people ask me about this, about, well, is hypnosis going to work? Is meditation going to work? And I explain to them that it's in large part the expectations. There's a lot of power in the dance between your expectations and your experience. So can you give me the hypnotic spin on that?
Yeah, and we're going to go deeper on this in a later episode. We're going to talk about suggestibility and hypnotizability, but to scratch the surface for today, I think that it's really important for people to understand, the most common question I get from people is, how do you know if someone can be hypnotized? And again, we'll talk about that in depth. But the first thing I usually say to people is expectation. If you have the appropriate expectation, then you open yourself up for it, and usually you're good to go. There's a ton, again, there's so much debate, different books and articles, and you'll hear people say hard and fast, 20% of the population cannot be hypnotized. From 20 to 80 is a sort of middle band. They want to do almost like a bell curve, right? Everything's distributed. They want to say 20% to 80% is the middle range. Yeah. Who, they can do it a little, and maybe they'll get better with practice. And then the top, some people say 10 and some people say 20% are the somnambulistic people who are like really, really naturally just fantastic at getting hypnotized. And some people like to really want to be rigid in the expectation they set about who can and who can't be hypnotized. I really find that it is about your expectation as the person who's considering whether or not to do it. If I always tell people in my stage shows, I say when you're in the right place and it's the right time and you have the right reason, you will be good to go. You will find a way to get what you need and have that experience. But even though it's only 3 things, those are 3 pretty serious things that have to all come together for you to formulate an expectation of success in terms of getting hypnotized.
Now, one thing that I've read as well is that some people worry that they're too inhibited or too intelligent to be hypnotized. And I've read information that essentially says that, my man, buckle up, buckle up, let's go.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the things that I'm curious about, and I'd love to hear your take on, is people who worry that they are too inhibited and they're kind of trapped inside their thought process. What can hypnosis bring to them?
Anything they want. Again, it goes right back to, you're saying inhibited. I am a little more blunt with it when I talk to people. They'll say something to that effect, and I'll go, well, stop being a control freak. Like, that's, people have, they have a level of fear, which has been brought about from seeing the way that hypnosis is portrayed in movies and television shows as a very sort of dark art, and it being wielded as a weapon or a power. And so then, and that tends to all be based around the idea of getting people to be under your control as the hypnotic operator. And so that's what a lot of people carry with them. And, and it's like, if you think of yourself as an inhibited person, what I would say is you can be inhibited in hypnosis. You just need to decide what the purpose of your hypnotic experience is supposed to be. And you can be inhibited about everything else, and we don't have to go there, but let's get you what you want to achieve in the thing that you care enough about to try hypnosis. You know what I mean? So if you want to stop chewing your fingernails and you go see a hypnotist, you can be inhibited about all the other aspects of your life. I don't care. I want to help you stop chewing your fingernails so you can be happier. That's the sole purpose of the work. And if people can get their head around that's you set the context for your hypnotic experience, okay, there you go. But people often just don't think of it that way. They haven't been told to think about it that way, and so they tend to struggle a little bit at first.
Now, as far as and this is kind of reframing and clarifying what you just said.
Sure.
As far as losing control during hypnosis, some people worry about that. What I might do, I might say things I don't want anyone to know. I might do things that I'm embarrassed about. Lose control.
Yeah, you might. I mean, again, see, it's all like, how do you want to frame it? What I tell people is, you define the context of your hypnotic experience. So let's say I've had this. Again, think about this. This is the guy, I hypnotize over 1,500 people a year, and I perform for over 10,000, sometimes as many as 12,000 people a year. I hypnotize a lot of people nationwide, and I've seen it all. I mean, I've had people who were fantastic hypnotic subjects, but we get to a point in the show where they're given a suggestion that they're going to dance, and they don't like dancing. Not publicly. They don't want to dance in front of people. They stay in hypnosis. They don't even exit the state, but they do not get up and dance. They let everyone else get up and dance. They sit and wait. It gets done. That skit gets done. Everyone comes back and sits down. We go back into a deeper level of hypnosis. We construct a new suggestion, new scenario. It feels great for them. They're like, all right, let's do it. And they get up and they do it, and they do it fantastically.
I've seen some serious dancing in your stage shows.
Huh?
I've seen some serious dancing going on.
Oh, yeah. Because, again, see, even if you're an inhibited person, the moment you choose to go to a stage hypnosis show, you're entering into like a social contract. You know what you're going to. You know what you're going to participate in. And so if you go there, the minute you walk in, you've chosen to enter that environment. Then it's like, okay, how far do you want to go with that? Most people will say, I'll go and I'll watch it, but I'm not going to be part of it. And so they don't get hypnotized. They sit and enjoy it and have a good time. Other people, they know that it's that kind of event that they came for, and they're cool with being part of it. And so they let themselves get hypnotized, and they are part of it, and they have a great time. Both things are okay. You know, I even have people who really, really desperately want to know what it's like to be hypnotized, but have no desire to be on stage. They go into hypnosis in the audience. They stay in hypnosis for the whole show. They never do anything. They just sit there and enjoy how nice it feels to be hypnotized, and that's it.
Now, one thing, and this, if I'm jumping too far ahead, too deep down the rabbit hole, one thing that I try to explain sometimes when I'm dealing with people more therapeutically is that hypnosis has a lot to do with the affordances that you experience, the metaphors that the lenses that you put on as you experience life. Mm-hmm. So can you elaborate on that from your end, Amy?
Yeah, the phrase I always use, because I'm a lay hypnotist. I don't have a psychiatric background like you do. So where you would say affordances, I would tend to use the term limiting beliefs. I talk with clients a lot about the idea that all of their choices and all of their lenses around what they think they're capable of and what they're not capable of are limiting beliefs, even the good ones. You have a limiting belief about what you can achieve. You have limiting beliefs about what you can't achieve. And that's all a sort of waking hypnosis. No one made a rule that said you can't be good at this or you can't be good at that. Somewhere along the way, your experiences crafted that framework, and you bought into it and accepted it. And so, you know, you think you're never going to be a good speller, or, you know, you're never going to be a good salesperson, or, you know, whatever. Right down to I'm never going to lose the weight, or I'm, you know, whatever it is. And these are the limiting beliefs that people adopt, and hypnosis can be really great for helping them change that. So can more traditional forms of therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, but that's just not what I do. I'm not a clinical person like you are. I tend to work more from a coaching perspective and try to use hypnosis to help people focus, and to then use that focus and increase suggestibility to change those limiting beliefs.
Yeah. And one way I like to think about it is that often the avoidance that people put in subconsciously due to learned helplessness, after a certain number of defeats, the elephant with the string in the circus that can't pull it because it was a chain at one point. That they do that where they come to a challenge and they don't swing through. They pull punches on the challenge and they do a C- job to protect their self-esteem. I didn't give it my whole try, consciously or subconsciously. And I find a lot of times that helping someone reframe the problem allows them to give it a harder swing because they think they're doing something else, sort of.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really nice way of framing it too, Manny. I think that's great. Yeah.
I've got a few questions that let's check some of these out. Now, Kevin Burns is asking, and I don't have the magical comment app, so everyone has to pretend they're watching this on the screen. Kevin Burns says, how do these folks not dance when they are under hypnosis? Clarify how you get these folks to dance, how to take them to a deeper level of hypnosis, particularly when they are resistant for this reason or that.
Yeah, it's a good question, Kevin. So it's the idea of selectivity, that all suggestions have to be selected for fulfillment by the client or by the volunteer in a stage environment. So again, the unfair model, which has been hoisted upon the broader public, is the Svengali model, where everything's mystical and powerful and you get bent to the hypnotist's will. The hypnotist is a facilitator, and in the best case scenario, the hypnotist crafts a suggestion which is pleasing and acceptable to you as the subject. And if that's done well, and you then think there's some kind of benefit or gain in it for you, you'll be more likely to accept it. So to really go to Kevin's exact example, what most people do is most people associate dancing with fun. So you lay out the reason or the scenario that the dancing is going to occur, which typically is something like you tell them they're in a contest and they have a chance to win a contest. And now there's some motivation. People want to win, right? Some people are going to shrink from that. They're not going to like the idea of potentially not winning and failing, right? And knowing that they're doing it in a group would publicly, right? So some people will shrink from that and they'll say there's risk there. I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to dance publicly. I certainly don't want to risk losing in front of others in a contest. And they'll reject it. They'll just reject the suggestion. They're still enjoying hypnosis. Blood pressure goes down. Breathing slows down. Beautiful relaxation for the vast majority of people while they sit on stage. So they have no reason to leave the state. They want to keep enjoying themselves, so they stay in state. They just don't, they're like, nah, I'm not going to do that suggestion.
Yeah.
Now, the other part of Kevin's question is how to take them to a deeper level. If you can get people to go deeper, sometimes by getting them to go deeper, you strip away some of those inhibitions that are more consciously constructed, and you can get people to accept a suggestion that if you put it to them not in hypnosis, like if I said to you, Manny, how about you just get up and you dance me a jig right now, and you'd be like, no, I'm okay. Right?
Yeah, right? I say no, I'm okay.
Right. But then in hypnosis,
I was feeling this already, but did that count?
Yeah, I mean, so I know you probably be like, mashed potato.
I got the boogaloo warmed up.
Yeah. But that's again, that's what it is all of our, not all, so many of our fears are driven by subconscious fear, right? But they're really articulated at the conscious level. We may have a subconscious fear of being embarrassed, and that's sort of the bottom up fear, right? The simple, basic. And then consciously we've tuned it to things that really put me at risk for being embarrassed. Dancing in front of others. I don't know. We have rules, and everyone's rules are a little different, and some of them are the same. But so it's that kind of stuff. The more you can strip away people's articulations, of how they're at risk, the better chance you have of letting them have a fun experience and letting them enjoy themselves.
Yep. Now, I think I saw a question from Grizz. He says, Paul Ramsey, are you saying our mind in the dissociative state respects consciously selected limits for hypnotic access?
Oh, That is a great question. Sometimes. Sometimes. I mean, see, again, it's really about, largely, my first response would be to say no, because here's another part that's really important when people are starting out just defining hypnosis, is oftentimes you'll hear hypnotists talk about how the critical faculty of the conscious mind gets bypassed when you help people go into hypnosis. And so part of why and this goes sort of back to Kevin's question as well, part of the reason that you're getting people to accept suggestions is they aren't thinking critically with their conscious mind the way they would if they were not in hypnosis. So I can't say that consciously selected limits are completely respected when you go into the hypnotic state, the dissociative state that I'm sort of presenting it as, because definitely some of that critical thinking is lost, and that's why you can get people to have a suggestion like you can have people have a suggestion where you tell them you're, I don't know, this is funny, I do this all the time, but I try to think of it off the top of my head and I can't think of something good. You're Lady Gaga, right? You say, I say to someone, you're Lady Gaga, you're giving a concert for all these people here tonight, they're so excited to see you, and you build the whole suggestion. And now a normal person, an average person not in hypnosis would go, that's ridiculous, I'm not Lady Gaga. The hypnotized subject, not thinking critically, goes, okay, I'm Lady Gaga. And they take that suggestion literally, sing, dance, hatch out of the egg, you know, whatever the, but, you know, but again, there's, see, that's where, this is where it gets trickier, that people are like, that doesn't make sense, it's not what you said before, because you said, you know, it's like, you got to be in their space, and in their space, it's a combination of factors between what level of critical thinking have they managed to retain, and more importantly, what emotional protections still remain. Because emotional protections aren't conscious, they're subconscious, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where the dancing could get rejected because there's an emotional protection occurring. I don't have to think critically about it consciously. I'm just thinking, nah, that's not okay, it's a risk. Whereas for some reason, the Lady Gaga thing doesn't fire off an emotional protection. It gets accepted literally, Lady Gaga.
Yeah. One thing that when we were taught hypnotic models and stuff, it was the emphasis was on attachment and internal working models. But what they pointed out was that if you don't develop a rapport with the person such that they can treat you like an attachment figure, and the logic of that is the same way you would let mom or dad tell you something and you're like, sure, I'd accept that. Or a good friend tell you something and you don't go checking every aspect of it because it's a good friend. That right. You build a rapport and you set out on a journey together and you let the hypnotist take you that way.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why there is a real, you know, there's a few different angles there that really deserve further discussion, and we will talk in a later video. We're going to talk about ethics, and again, so just to go, what you said is great. To tie it back to what I said earlier, I would say what I think sometimes people don't consider is they want to then say, so doing stage hypnosis is not okay because you're messing with people. And I say no. Again, people are choosing to come participate in this fun event that has a very specific context in which we're all cool with. You know, that's why they came. That's why they volunteered. The thing that you said is still an important consideration, I think much more so if you're doing therapeutic work. They have to be really careful about the way you manipulate, and I mean that in a standard sense, not an evil sense, but just the way you manipulate emotional states, memories, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on there, and that's why it's important, you know, to operate within your scope of practice, which again we'll talk about when we talk about ethics later on. Yeah.
But right, back to the fun questions though. What's the craziest thing you've seen at a stage show?
People ask me that all the time.
Good. Tell me. He-Man, as we say in
I'll tell
Miami.
you, I don't have a really good answer to that the way people always wish for, because I believe strongly, very, very strongly, that my responsibility as a stage hypnotist is to provide an experience to people that is so good and positive that they'll then want to go use hypnosis later on to make their life better somehow. And because of that, I restrain the material in my show. I try to run a really clean, fun show. So I'm not pushing for craziness the way some other stage hypnotists are. Some stage hypnotists, they want things as crazy and off the hook as can be because they think it makes a better impression. I always worry that that makes some people leave that event going, did you see that? I will never let anyone hypnotize me. And that just breaks my heart, and I don't want to ever be part of that. So for me, it's the unusual ways in which people interpret and fulfill suggestions that I didn't intend, like that I'm like, how did you think of that? Like, you know, I talked to you about this a while back, that I was giving a demonstration at the University of New Hampshire, and I told these 5 students that they were all pirates. And I thought it'd just be fun to have them talk like pirates and make a hook hand and stuff, you know, like, and I thought it'd be cute. So I tell all 5 of them that they're going to be pirates, and I bring them out of the deeper state into a lighter state, and we activate, and 5 of them stand up, 4 of them start walking like they got a peg leg, and they got the hook hands and the scowl, and the 5th one calmly stands up without any kind of, like, just stands up, walks across the room to a piano that's in this lounge that I'm giving this demonstration in, sits down at the piano and starts playing like a pirates song, like a song that just sounds like pirates would play it if they were in a bar or something. I don't know, you know, like he's like boom, 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 boom. He's like, you know, and he's got, it's rudimentary, but it's chords, and everyone's kind of laughing, right? And then I find out this young man doesn't know how to play the piano. He knows how to play the guitar, so he has some sense of music in his head, but he doesn't know how to play the piano. And yet he sat down at that piano and he played a song. Stuff like that blows my mind, that when we sort of unfetter the mind and just see what it can do, this wonderful creativity comes out of it and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that's kind of crazy in a good way for me.
That's cool. Now let me see what else I can find in the question queue. Sorry, y'all, I'm not used to doing the question thing.
Peter just left a comment saying the clinical side is interesting all the same. It absolutely is. If that's, I didn't mean to create that impression. The clinical side is fascinating and very important. The work that clinical folks are doing is very important. I just meant to say that because I'm not a licensed therapist or counselor, I don't go there because I'm trying to work within my scope of practice. So I try to stick with, you know, kind of my stuff. Yeah, there's great stuff and very fascinating stuff happening on that side of the profession. Yeah,
especially in the pain management element, because one thing they're finding is that pain is as much a social and attention construct as it is an actual. Well, everything emotional is physiological, but they can hypnotize you and do surgery.
I did a corporate event, Manny, that was really, I did a corporate event years ago, and a young man, probably in his late 20s, came up to me. He had been in the show, came up to me after the show, and he said, hey, I got to ask you a question. I said, yeah, sure. And he said, can you tell me, he said, okay, this is years ago, I'm trying to think of. So he said, I was in a car accident 2 years ago, really bad car accident, a lot of damage to my back. He said, got to the point where the doctors told me I was going to have surgery. He said, so I went and I had surgery, and they botched the surgery, and my back actually was worse after the surgery than it was before the surgery, and it's never gotten any better. He said, but just now when I was in your show, he said, all my pain went away. And he said, so can you tell me why that happened?
Because you really, really wanted it to go away.
And I said, I said, let me answer your question with a question. All right. And I said, how about you tell me why that happened? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, well, just think about it. Like, what might be what might be some considerations there? And so we kind of talked about that, and we talked that all out where, he finally got to that point where, because it's very hard to start having a conversation with someone where what they tend to hear is, so you're saying I'm making it up, and I didn't. So I wanted to really try to get him to think about, and I'm like, no, that's not what I don't want to say that. I'm just saying there's something going on, and what does it tell you if when we went to that point where your subconscious got peaceful, all your pain went away?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool,
Yeah. Worth thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I think we've covered just about everything.
Yeah, for the basic stuff. Hey, I will tell you guys, I'm glad we talked about the stuff that we talked about. So if you want to check, I mean, you're great at finding research and stuff all the time. Probably one of the best overviews of hypnotic applications that I've seen in a while. 2005, the Mayo Clinic Proceedings. Dr. James Stewart wrote a piece for that journal where he sort of compiled a whole bunch of other studies that he had reviewed, and it was titled Hypnosis in Contemporary Medicine, 2005 Mayo Clinic Proceedings. And he covers a whole bunch of studies which he had reviewed and felt like were worthy studies, and all the different uses, medically speaking, for hypnosis. And so for those of you who are a little more medically inclined or wondering how it might be able to be used to help people actually be healthier, I would do a Google search for that, and I think that's a really fascinating piece. And then you can do all the National Institutes of Health and Google Scholar and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff out there.
I think one of the things to underscore is your attention is such a powerful and potent thing that it's time to realize that and start directing your attention to the things that actually matter to you, so that you don't wake up and you don't remember chunks of your life as if you had experienced them in the third person. Yeah. And fear does that a lot, where fear makes you dissociate. And often you can take someone and you can bring them closer to their fear, but with the security of a safe situation, they find so many other things in life that they've been missing out on because it kind of looked like the thing they were afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That's my biggest thing I've moved to in the last couple of years, Manny, is that's sort of, and a big part of where I want to keep going in my relationship with you is I want us to figure out if I had to pick one thing. I mean, we've got a lot of ideas, but the biggest thing is I want to really fine-tune a way to really be super successful helping people eradicate fear from their lives. Because I think what you said is a perfect representation of that. It's holding people back too much, and I feel like it's holding people back more than ever nowadays.
Yeah, because they're amplifying it.
Yeah.
They are amplifying it. But thanks everybody for being here. I'm Dr. Manny Cyanide.
I'm Paul Ramsey. Thanks so much for joining us.